I'm Alicio, a 19-year-old photojournalist and reporter from the University of Illinois, working for the Daily Illini, the university's student paper. I've come to realize as I've gone through school that we often find ourselves doing mundane tasks, beating dead horses, and too often paying too much respect to the musty, ivy-draped halls where we spent most of our academic careers. More often than not, I find myself feeling like I'm in the wrong classroom. Luckily, I've had the privilege of being able to travel, meet new people, learn new languages, and see how small my corner of the world really is, while also being able to document these people. I've also come to see that too many intriguing stories out there fall through the cracks. Through the years, stories of people, towns, and socio-political issues are published in photo essays where, subsequently thereafter, the subject matter of the stories are never touched again. It's stories like these that prompt me to leave the newsroom and go tie the untied ends of these people's lives and their progress through life. I plan to travel through Mexico, Central America, Cuba, and the U.S. this summer in search of such people and towns who have been documented in glossy, papered photojournals and see how their lives have unfolded since. One story that struck a chord with me and inspired me to take on such a project was National Geographic's story of the Afghan girl. In 1984, photographer Steve McMurray took this famous photograph of an Afghan refugee girl whose anguish resonated through her striking eyes, becoming one of the most famous faces of innocence of all time. After a very long search through Afghanistan, he found and revisited the Afghan girl 17 years later, essentially tying the loose ends of a portrait that touched millions of lives and prompted an outpour of help from the international community, who raised millions of dollars for Afghan refugees. I want to do something similar to see how much the political, cultural, and agricultural landscape has changed in the past 10, 20, 30 years in the Americas. This summer, I plan to hit the road and revisit people, towns, and sources of old photo essays and documentaries and look back on what's changed and what's prompted these changes. Here's an example. Videographer Hubert Smith documented the lives of a Mayan family living deep in the Yucatec jungle in 1983, just like their ancestors used to. Their village, Chican, had recently been connected to the outside world by a newly instituted gravel road. This meant that they were no longer isolated, and in the year's time that Smith documented their lives, he saw subtle changes and conflict between two different eras, as the Koyi family's traditional way of life was being threatened by inhibitors of the modern world. With the money raised from this campaign, one of the things I'd like to do is revisit the Koyi family in Chican and get some insight on whether or not they've transitioned into a more modern way of living. There are similar themes in Cuba, Latin America, and even in the U.S., and I simply want to bring all of these stories full circle. I want to match the coarse 50mm film frames of yesterday's stories and see how the spectrum has changed, while also paying close attention to contemporary life. So if you like the idea, I'd appreciate any support. Most of the money will go towards transportation costs, while some of it will allow me to help anyone in need of aid that I may find along the way. This project, which will still take place to a smaller scale even if the goal isn't reached, will be much better with your support. Thank you.